All right, we're back. This is supposed to be Chris unplugged, and we were literally unplugged. So you're getting it the way sausage is made, right behind the scenes here. But that's what we wanted to share with you. Chris live in his shop, and covering any ideas or things that we just hadn't touched on in the course, and kind of show you where you could go from here. And we're going to hear a lot more from Chris. So let's go back to Chris. Hey, there he is. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
We were talking about stamping and carving and different additional options. So a guy like me, so now I've made my first couple of holsters. Let's say I want to do some stamping, because it sounds a lot easier than the carving. That's more artistic, right? So show me some stamps, and how do I do this stuff?
Sure. Well, let's go over real quick the different kinds of stamps, because there's stamps for decoration, there's stamps for marking big things, there's layout stamps. We'll start from big and go small.
Okay.
All right. This particular stamp is very large. This is probably about 3.5 inches tall. Okay. And what this is for is in a saddle shop. What this is a specific kind of flower. And you'd lay out a big piece of leather and you just wonk that stamp in there, and then you'd come back and carve it and make the rest of your pattern. So that's just kind of not a cheap cheat in getting the patterns onto the leather quickly. Okay. It was made out of aluminum. Then we have stamps like this one. This is my maker's mark. It's made out of steel. It's engraved, right? And then we have our laser maker mark, which is a lot bigger. Has my full mark with the skull. There's some light. There we go. Okay. Done on a laser. You can have this kind of stamp when you hit with a maul or a hammer, made in the Delrin with a laser like this one. This one's designed to go into what's called a clicker press. It's a big hydraulic press that comes down and cuts leather out. It's used with knife edge banding. They make dies, cuts the leather out. Where we can also mark the leather. We can also put this in an arbor press or a shop press, or any kind of press you want. It's too big to hit with a hammer, really. With all that extra stuff in there, it's going to bounce around. You got to use a press. Okay.
That gives you the control of just putting the pressure right on, and it's not going to move around on you.
Now, what I have here is a set of stamps made by Turner Laser Works, and this particular set is 1911, 4-inch, 3.5, 3, etc., 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 for marking holsters. We use those. I don't put this in the press; they're too small. I just set them on there and lightly tap them with a hammer, and it puts it right in there. Okay.
Okay.
Now we
do you have a lot of stamps?
I have a lot of stamps. I'm going to overwhelm you with that here in just a second. We're going to get into a geometric stamp.
Okay.
And I want to give you a little bit of a size differential.
Oh.
This one's probably 1 inch tall. And this one, which I would call kind of small, this one is maybe 1/4 inch tall, and it's actually a little basket stamp. And I'm going to open that up.
Oh, whoa.
And open that up. And see if I can't get a little bit.
Holy moly, you got stamps. Well, why would you have so many different stamps?
Well, I have a bit of a tool problem.
Okay.
I have a bit of a tool problem. There's a lot of good tool makers out there. These are all professional, high-quality tools, handmade or machine-made. To get started, you want to get it. There's only about 10 or 15 you really need to get started: a swivel knife, a good maul, and your basic carving tools if you're going to carve, or a set of different sizes of geometric stamps that you happen to like. To get started with stamps, the place you want to go to is Springfield Leather Company. They sell Craft Japan leather stamps.
Okay.
They are the highest quality, budget-minded tool you can get. There is a craft company called Craft Tool, which is sold at the Tandy Corporation, Tandy stores. Those are handy because they're like in your town. There's probably a Tandy somewhere near you that you can go to and get these tools. But the ones they sell there are not for the same price, you can get a better tool in the Japanese tools at Springfield. The difference is you have to order them and wait for them for a few minutes. That's worth it. Those tools at Tandy, the Tandy sells a lot of fine things. It's not a bad place to shop. It's just a bad place to buy leather stamps. Springfield Leather Company is a place to go. You're looking at $8 to $12 a stamp, where some of these black tools, they start at $55 because some guy sits there in a vise and makes these by hand. He charges the same price as you gunsmiths do for sitting there at the vise and doing things by hand, okay?
Right.
At that range.
But if I wanted to, I just built one of the holsters from the course, or before I build it, because that's another question. You actually do the stamping before, at what point?
You do it, I do it once the leather, and I think I covered this in class. I do my carving and stamping after I've glued the liner in.
Okay.
With the only variation on that being is if I'm setting stones, or I'm doing a filigree where I cut out a background and put something different color behind it, or if I'm doing an exotic inlay, that all has to be done before it's glued together. So that's the only difference. But most of the time, I'm making a solid holster and I glue my liner on while it's still flat. I carve or stamp or whatever I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Dye the holster, whatever, do any dye work I'm going to do, then assemble the holster.
Okay, so that gives me the proper context. So now I can practice making one or two holsters, and then after I got that down, then I can stop in the process and do my first basket weave or stamping of some sort.
Exactly.
And I suppose you could do it as basic as you want. I imagine a lot of the old holsters were pretty basic, weren't they?
Absolutely, and you don't really start seeing the basket stamping until the very late 1800s. That's when your saddle shops were kind of coming up to speed. Putting out catalogs. There was saddle shops were big business back in the day, and they had big saddle shops. Downtown Denver was H.H. Heiser. It took up an entire almost half a block, and it's a big shop. And they made saddles and holsters and tack and gear. And it's in that time frame, kind of like, we'll say from like the 70s, 1875. That's when these guys started sitting down. They'd take a big nail and get it hot and smash it flat and start shaping it with a file. That's where these tools came from.
Wow. So, I mean, literally our guys, if they were handy with forging or welding, machining, they could actually make probably a tool if they wanted to be ultra challenged, but I probably would start off finding those.
They're used to sitting there and filing and doing a lot of fine work. Making stamps is not that far. If you have something, I can't find it, or whatever, I want to pay $55 to $100 to have one made. Sit down with a bolt. Typically, you get a number 8 bolt. Anneal it. You do whatever work you're going to do on the head of it. Get the threads off of it so you can hold on to it. Reharden it. You got a leather stamp. There
you go. And that's pretty much a lot of that's covered in the gunsmithing course, as far as annealing and heat treating and so on.
All ties together.
Yeah, you'd say that again? It all
ties together. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, that's what I thought you said. I just want to make sure I wasn't stomping on you with our, half a second or so internet here.
Forget about that delay.
Yes, definitely. So we've kind of covered, part of what they can do next. There's certainly the sky's the limit. You reminded them about some resources. I got a couple of things I'm curious about with your shop that I'm looking in the background and so on. Okay. How big is your leather working area? I see a surface plate over there. I see some holsters, flats behind you, some more tools. No big surprise there, probably, right? And then some. What are all those things across the top? Kind of like jars or something like that, I think.
These things right up here above my head.
Yeah.
What those are bar jars. They're 32-ounce bar jars. It's what you'd keep your juice or your mixers or whatever in behind the bar.
Oh.
I was in a business once upon a time where we had a large surplus of these, and I was able to obtain them. And now I've got the lid screwed to a board, and I keep hardware, buckles, clips, snaps, all the stuff I don't want to have to deal with on my bench is hanging up there.
That's handy. That's
Yeah.
handy.
Yeah.
Versus having little envelopes or boxes or whatever. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. They're talking, hardware, buckles.
Yeah. Okay.
Stuff. So.
That's a good idea. So tell us a little bit about your shop layout then. You do most of the work.
If I can do it without making you sick, I'll move the camera around here and give you a little tour.
Okay.
All right. So the easiest one to show is the tooling bench. We've already seen that. You mentioned the surface plate. Anytime you're doing any carving or stamping, you need to have a solid stone beneath you. You can get away with a sink cut, 3/4 inch or whatever, glued onto a piece of hard rubber. But ideally, a surface plate is really the best way to go. You got a solid 3 inches of granite. I've got it on a good oak desk or a solid bench. What you don't want is any movement in your table as you're pounding on things. You want that table to be dead.
Hmm.
Obviously, you have to get your legs underneath there, so you have to put it on a bridge. The bigger that stone is, the thicker that stone is, the less vibration you're going to have on your bridge, okay? So we'll go back over here.
Yeah.
Back over here is my main assembly area. I've got a piece of glass on here. We talk about skiving and gluing on the glass. This is my glass. I've got my finishes stored over here on this side. I've got all my punching stuff on this side. We have a large piece of UHM, no, this is not UHM, HDPE, high density polyethylene, 3 inch thick. This is what I punch all my holes into. Again, right over the leg of my bench, so it's a nice solid surface. Okay. I have to stand up and move around here a little bit. Make sure I know what you're looking at. We'll kind of go over here. In class, I mentioned we use the oscillating spindle sander.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We come around a little bit farther over here. This large kind of beige colored machine, that is a strap cutter. I can cut a multitude of straps all at one time.
Oh,
nice.
That's handy.
All right. What we have over here, I'm making sure I can see that. That is my die bench. So I do all my airbrushing, all my dyeing, all my color is back over there.
Yep.
Turn around here a little bit more. I believe you can see my hydraulic clicker there.
Sure can.
That big machine with the blue deal and the handles on it, that's the clicker that cuts out my leather.
Yep.
When I have the standard design, which is not very often. So mostly I use that for cutting pieces for classwork and kits. I sell kits through Weaver Leather Supply, and that's what I use that machine for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we come back here a little bit, this is my cutting table. It's 8 foot long by 3.5 foot, covered in ultra high molecular weight plastic, typical cutting board.
Tilt it down just a little bit. Down view a little bit.
What's that?
You tilt it down. There you go. Just so that everybody can see the edge. And I see also you have that metal ruler along there. You use that as a straight edge or just for measuring the length?
Straight edge. I use it for a straight edge. I use it to measure my belts or anything else that I need to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
You can see down below there, I've got a lot of different kinds of leather.
Yep.
Stacked in different ways.
Yep. So one of the things, just like gunsmithing, I mean, you've got a dedicated full-time shop there for this, and yet it's not huge, but it's efficient, right? And that's one of the things we're always trying to get across to our guys. Many of them, when they're first getting started in the gunsmithing, they're thinking they want a 40-foot by 100-foot machine shop, and they'll be running from one end to the other to get anything done. You want everything kind of close and comfortable and set up. And and then if you have space, then you can have dedicated areas. Like Gene Shuey, has a dedicated area for 1911s, another dedicated area for, niter bluing, and then another area for your modern metal finishes, and another area for stock building, and so on like that. You can have those where it's efficient, everything's around.
Right.
But you don't need a huge shop. And in fact, if you're like this, your thing, highly efficient.
It really needs to be a smaller shop. To be fair, I could probably shrink this one just a little bit to save myself some efficiency going from bench to bench. I do have, this room that I'm in is about 400 square feet. I use about half of it all the time. That's where I'm standing. That's what I just showed you. The other half of the shop, I've got a deep sink and some other big machines, spot setters, splitters, different sewing machines that I use, press that I use to actually mold the holsters like we saw in class. There's not a need to be in those areas all the time, so I have them kind of outside of my work envelope.
Right.
And the things that I use all the time are right inside my little space here. It's just a quick walk to wherever I want to go to get to wherever I need to be.
That is really the way to do it. When guys that have seen Ken Brooks's gunsmithing shop, his workbench area is a lot like yours. He can almost touch both walls, and the length is maybe 10, 12 feet is all it is, and he could even shrink that a little bit, like you said, but because he's got at one end a lot of things he uses frequently, but not constantly. But the stuff around your bench you're using constantly, which makes sense. And then his lathe or his dirty room for his welding or anything like that are other areas. And that's a really cool way to have it. So our guys, if they're starting off, you've shown this already in the course, but they don't need much more than the bench behind you, right? They don't need a lot of space. So that's
truly. I have a lot of fellow leather workers and students, and you get on the social media. Everyone likes to show off their shop. And by the way, there are a ton of different groups of leather workers in social media.
Okay.
I hate to promote, but at the end of the day, Facebook has the most. There are a ton of leather workers on Facebook that you can get a hold of, talk to, all that kind of thing.
Okay.
But people show their shops. Everyone likes to show off their little shop.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are doing amazing work out of the corner of the sewing room. They got a desk, and that's all they've got.
That's all Mama gives them, huh?
Oh, yeah, exactly. There might be a stitcher sitting there or not, but at the end of the day, everything gets done on one bench. These aren't usually full-time people. You get into a full-time gig, you're making numbers of holsters a week. That's going to grow. You're going to have to find a bigger space.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take a lot of space for a lot of equipment and a lot of power tools. It takes a solid bench. If you're going to stamp or carve, a good rock, a solid piece of safety glass. Doesn't have to be huge, just a little piece of safety glass you can skive and glue on. A bench to cut on, a surface. It might just be
all the same bench. You move stuff on and off, right?
Off, exactly. If all you have is a desk and you can't glue a big piece of cutting board to it, get you a 2 foot by 3 foot cutting board or one of those big cutting mats from the sewing stores.
Mm-hmm.
Those big cutting mats, they work. They're fine. So you don't have to have a huge investment to get in. We were talking about the stamps to the same point. I've got hundreds of stamps. I probably use about 15 of them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But again, I have a bit of a tool problem, and I hate to have to need something. If I need it, I want to have it at my fingertips. So when I'm at these shows, I'm like, ooh, that's a cool tool, cool stamp, cool this, cool that. I get them. I don't use them for 2 years, but every once in a while I'm like, oh, dude, that's pull it out and use it. And
it gives you a little different flavor. Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors, but I'll bet you that they only sell a half a dozen is probably 80% of their sales,
I have a bazillion T-shirts. I wear probably 5 on a regular basis,
There you go. So you've collected those stamps over the years and years, so they don't need to do that. They can start with your supplier sources. So I'd like to, we've talked about them and in the course, but let's just hit them again to make it a reminder, because I want them to know where they can get your patterns very easily, and they don't come to you necessarily, right? Do you offer them directly on your website?
I do not. When I did that, I never got any leather work done. So now I wholesale to these shops. They're all charged about the same price. Not one's no better than the other. The first shop I would recommend is Makers Leather Supply. And that's literally just a .com. Okay. Springfield Leather Supply I'd mentioned. Again, .com. That's where you're going to get your
stamps,
value-priced leather stamps. As long as any kind of hardware leather. I mean, it is a full-service retail store. They have I don't know how old your guys are, but back in the day, we used to get the Sears catalog. at Christmas every year, and it's damn near that big. Their catalog is huge.
Wow.
As well as Weaver Leather Supply also has a monster catalog, and they, again, service everything from harness making, the saddle shops, all your power tools, all your needs. And all three of those places carry my pattern packs. Weaver also carries my kits. I offer 2 different concealed carry holsters as kits. Leather's pre-cut, full instructions. It's like $25-$30. Liners, everything. It's full deal.
Wow.
The place I want to mention for sure is Leather Machine Company. They make all my power tools. Every single one of my power tools is Leather Machine Company. The gentleman that runs it's a former mechanic, leather machine mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Started his own company. His stuff runs. His customer service is better than anybody else in the business.
Outstanding. What about your classes, Chris? I mean, if somebody wants to, work right directly under you, how would they have that opportunity?
I do offer one-on-one classes here in the shop, which are listed and described on my website, slickbald.com. What I typically, when someone comes to me and wants to take a class here in the shop, I really try to recommend they go to the shows. I teach almost everything the same in the shows as I do here. It's not one-on-one. You might have 4 or 5 other people in class with you. It's going to be a lot less for the class, as well as you're going to maximize your travel dollars because you're going to go to a show where you have other opportunities with different instructors, as well as you have a full trade show where all your vendors are there, all your tool makers are there, all your leather suppliers are there, the tanneries are there. Everybody's at these shows. So for the same travel dollar, you get way, way, way more for your money taking my classes at these shows.
So well, first off, thank you for those tips. A very honest, evaluation that way to help save guys money. They're going to have a huge leg up having already taken this course. So
Absolutely.
Having taken this course, they're going to have full understanding of things that a lot of other people won't. But when you say shows, normally when I think of a trade show, you're just walking past all the booths. But apparently at these shows, they have classrooms that are optional. Is that the deal?
These are teaching shows.
But you're not teaching right in the booth, right? It's a breakout?
No, we break out. As an example, the show in Prescott, Arizona, first weekend in March is it's in a conference center, like a big hotel conference center. So the trade show's in one of the big conference rooms, and then all the little rooms they have all these classes in, for like 4 or 5 days. You have these classes with 20 to 30 instructors, everything from beading to purse making to holsters, of course, multitudes of different kinds of carving and different styles. It is the mecca for leather crafters. It really is.
I'm going to have to go visit one of those myself. That just sounds like a lot of fun.
Prescott wouldn't be too hard for you to get to. We have a lot of folks that come from the valley up there that come down to the shows.
Well, at this point, we've taught them how to make holsters from scratch. We've shared with them where they could go from that into the art part of it. You've generously, and you didn't even know I was going to ask you to do that. You showed them all around your shop, which, man, I would not do that most of the time because my shop is such a disaster.
It's not in too bad a shape today.
That's good.
Tomorrow's
better. But you also showed them a lot of other ideas and things, and that's what I wanted to accomplish here was kind of Chris in his shop unplugged, and you lifted the flap to the bigger tent and have shown them where they can go to get more if they get excited about this. And I think even if it's not them, it might be their wives, it might be their kids. That's what we want to do. Open doors for people, teach them real trade schools, preserve this knowledge. And I just want to personally thank you for having done that, being willing to do that.
Well, sir, I appreciate the opportunity. It's very rare that I get to teach outside of my bubble. I'm fairly well known as the holster guy or one of the holster guys in the leather business. Oddly, I'm not that well known in the gun business. So for the opportunity to sit here and get to know gunsmiths, be they current or future, and the opportunity to just bring more people into my craft.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as I really like to think of myself as well, the word escapes me, but, you know, my job as a leather worker is a craftsman, period.
Right.
It's other people to the craft to keep the craft alive.
Well,
And that's really why I teach. You know, I had a hard time finding instruction back before the internet and before I knew these magazines existed. I've only been in the game about 10 years as far as, you know, really being at the professional level with other people and getting instruction myself. I think, again, I mentioned that in the classes. So it's a tremendous opportunity to get to be, you know, put out there in such a different way, and I appreciate it.
well, you are very modest. You know, I hope all of our guys know that they've been learning from a guy who's really master and has won tons of awards and now judges everyone else as stuff generously, I'm sure. But, you know, you helping people learn, but you judging them at these shows. So you're the guy right now. And thank you again for sharing all this with us and opening a new door and preserving these trades. Again, Chris, I just thank you. So take care.
And it's appreciated. Yes, sir. Take care, and we'll talk to you next class.
All right. Bye now.